Good afternoon, everyone. We are very, very privileged today to have Papa Hashim Djojohadikusumo Hadi to be present for our South China SCMP conference. We are very, very pleased that you have been able to make it despite a very busy schedule. I was told initially that we wanted to make you give a speech, but it's been a long day, and we were advised that you would rather just sit down and give us an overview of where Indonesia is at right now in February 2026, given all the headlines it's been making these past few weeks, if not months. Over to you, Baba.
So Zuraidah, thanks very much for having me. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for your time. I think I'll go straight to the point that I think all the fundamentals are very, very positive. In spite of, let's say, the turbulence, and even the turbulence, and I think you're alluding to the Morgan Stanley, let's say, reminder to us. One of the things that struck me that I just found out after our interview of last week was that actually what made the government very angry, angry towards government officials, is that Morgan Stanley actually sent 4 letters. They sent 4 letters to the Indonesian government. None of the 4 letters there were no replies to any of the 4 letters. So when the Morgan Stanley sent their message, it should not have been a shock. You know, people said it was a shock. It should not have been a shock. But the government was a shock for the government because the government wasn't informed. I'm talking about the highest levels of the government. So the fundamentals look very, very good. And I think the real economy looks quite good. It's now basically correcting the, let's say, the mistakes. Yeah, let's say I would say the moral mistakes that have been committed with regards to the stock market and the capital markets. So I think there's been a good correction. I looked at the numbers. The share prices of the companies with very good fundamentals had fallen, declined in a very small way, small decline. These are the ones with the fundamentals. The companies like Astra or BCA or the government banks, the share prices have actually rebounded. It's the companies which were manipulated, the stock market manipulations on the companies, let's say the companies which we said were, digoreng. There's a term in Indonesian, I think some of you, well, I see some Indonesians here, but and there's a term in Indonesian called menggoreng. It's to fry the stock. It's basically to manipulate the stock price. So, Zuraidah, apparently, there have been stocks with multiples, PE multiples of 167, another one with 300, one with 1,200 times, and one 4,000 times. I was shocked. Can you imagine a company with a PE multiple of 4,000 and not making any money? And a free float of 1%, 1.5%. So then you compare to an Astra, a multiple of 8. And then you look at NVIDIA. You all know of NVIDIA. NVIDIA's PE multiple is 60. So how can you compare a company like NVIDIA making tens of billions of dollars of cash flow, and then Indonesian company, a little piddly company making no money, with a PE ratio of 4,000 or 4,000. Obviously, there was malfeasance, there was indications, I think, of graft and of bad behavior. So, again, the fundamentals look good. I'm very optimistic. The government's very optimistic. I had a meeting with 3 ministers this morning. They're all very upbeat and optimistic. It's just now a matter of really weeding out the bad eggs, yeah? And I think we're going to do. And I think, frankly, heads are going to roll. I think even fines, very steep fines will be levied. And I think it's going to correct itself. But so how do I feel? I feel very good.
Papa, when you say heads are going to roll, we know that there have already been 5 resignations. Do you see more happening, at least on the government side? And when you talk about the bad eggs, some of these bad eggs are key members of the elite in Indonesia. So I guess the question is, how prepared is the Indonesian government to go after these elites?
I'll give you an example. 2 weeks ago when the president was in London, I was with him in London. 28 companies had their licenses revoked because of indications that they were involved in, let's say, the environmental degradation of Sumatra, of the 3 provinces, Aceh, North Sumatra, and West Sumatra. These 28 companies have been implicated. Data has been used, satellite photography, drone photography, anecdotal evidence. I mean, thousands of people lost their lives. But there was decisive action, and some of the elite was involved. Some of the elite was involved. Some of these companies are now asking for a review of the case because they feel that they were not involved. The president has said several times he does not want a miscarriage of justice. He doesn't want to, because of, let's say, mob pressure, to revoke indiscriminately. So I think the cases are going to be reviewed, but I'm sure there are only 4 companies, I think, which are asking for a review. So that's I think a concrete example of where Prabowo wants to go. These are powerful people with powerful connections, but I think he's proving the point. So I cannot say, I'm not the Attorney General, I'm not in the, but if there are people who are, let's say, responsible for criminal behavior, because small investors, I understand, small investors have actually lost money, right? It's not only the big players, it's small investors, retail investors have money. So, criminal behavior may have occurred, and so everything is open. Everything is open. All of the possibilities are open, I think.
So you talked earlier about how there were actually 4 warnings before this and government officials did nothing. Why do you think that was the case? Is it a question of people associated with the previous regime? Or is it just bureaucratic inefficiency? What was at play there?
I can only conjecture, but I don't really want to prejudice the case, okay? So I don't want to slander anybody. I know some of the names mentioned. I don't think I should say who they are. Let the judicial process, take its course. I think I should not make any comments on that. But everything is on the table.
Great. So, Bapak, President Prabowo has been in office for over 1 year and 3 months. In fact, he was elected 2 years ago. Can you share with our audience, half of whom are actually from outside of Indonesia, what these last 14 months have been like? What have been your big wins, and what have been some setbacks that you've encountered?
I think what's happened in the last 15 months has been the extent to which the bureaucracy, some may say the deep state, the bureaucracy is resisting. And it's I think the iron will, I would say the iron will of my president, that things have gotten done. Because if he didn't have the iron will, he could have got bogged down in the quagmire of bureaucratic inertia, bureaucratic resistance, dare I say corruption, corrupt practices. It's been a hard slog. And I felt this. I've been involved in some of these struggles. So I can say it's been, somewhat frustrating. Had the bureaucracy been more cooperative, I think things would have proceeded much faster. But we're proud. We're proud of, in spite of this bureaucracy, we've been able to actually start and really develop our programs. For instance, the free meal program. The free meal program actually was conceptualized in 2006. It's 20 years ago. It was actually, we were talking about this in the summer of 2006. There was no Garindra. I wasn't in politics at the time. We had not set up our party. Prabowo was a member of Golkar, and he was very concerned about the health of our population, especially kids. And we were talking about stunting. That was the first time I heard the term stunting was from my brother in 2006. So he's been developing this idea and how to promote this idea and then to execute this idea. And by the grace of God, he was given the mandate, he took power, and we will be able to plan and then now execute the free meal program. So we are very proud. I mean, the government is attacked every day on social media about food poisoning, about spoiled food and spoiled trays and this and that, and whilst every case of food poisoning is to be regretted, when you talk about the scheme of things, Zuraidah, I saw the highest number of food poisonings was 10,000 kids suffered from food poisoning in the context of 62 million other kids who did not get food poisoning. Okay? So that's the context. But you see, Indonesia is a democracy, right? You can attack and you can say things, and people attack Prabowo because he's fat, and somebody he's thin, maybe too skinny, and this and that on a personal attacks. But it doesn't bother him. I mean, he's gone through this so many times. So the free meal program. The second, I think, notable achievement is the free checkup program. You know that more than 72 million Indonesians have had free checkups. These are medical checkups. And this is a major program, a new program, never been done in Indonesia before. And some tens of millions of poor people who have never had a checkup in their lives have now benefited from this program. And it's going to be a continuous program. In fact, Mas Anin, you and I are eligible for a free checkup, Actually, all Indonesian citizens, rich or poor or in between, you're all eligible for a free checkup, okay? So this has been another major achievement, amazing. It really is an amazing program, one of the few in the world. A free checkup. So a lot of people who've never been able to afford a checkup, they now know that they have high blood pressure or low blood pressure, they have kidney problems, some have found out they have cancer, unfortunately, but at least they know. Yeah? So this is a major now. And then we have other programs less well known. We have a program for underprivileged kids, the lowest decile. Kids who never went to school because their parents were making incomes of 600,000 rupees a month. I'm talking about a month. I'm talking about $35 a month. Can you imagine, surviving in Singapore or Malaysia or Hong Kong on $35 a month? People in Indonesia are getting incomes and have to make do with $35 a month. And these are the kids. Prabowo started a program for these kids. These are dormitories, these are boarding schools. The Indonesian boarding schools were usually either for the rich or for Muslim santri, Muslim santri. This is now a boarding school for the poor, whatever their tribe or their creed or their religion. This is for everybody. But it's for the poor. So this is another, but it's not that well known because at the moment only 100,000 kids are being accommodated, in 166 schools. The target is to do 500 schools, maximum 500,000 kids who are from the poorest of the poor. These are children of pemulung, ya? Apa sih? No, the pemulung apa sih bahasa Inggris? Scavengers. The garbage who scavenge in garbage. These are the pemulung. These are the children of the pemulung. You may have seen a very sad case when you see, the father carrying this gerobak, apa sih? This cart with maybe the son or daughter inside. These are the kids who don't get an education. Prabowo is determined that all these kids get an education. So they break out of the cycle of poverty, basically. So that's a less well-known program, but something that's been carried out. And then another program is to prepare and send students at government expense to get education, especially in what they call STEM: science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and medicine. STEM plus medicine. Prabowo is obsessed. I can say he's obsessed with Indonesia improving our performance, our students' performance in the STEM disciplines. And I think the list goes on. All these things that have. Then you have the Sekolah Garuda. The Sekolah Garuda is for everybody, from from Mas Anin's grandchildren, or my grandchildren are eligible. I'm sorry, I keep mentioning you, but because you are the rich people in this room, I don't see too many poor people in this room. So I pick on Mas Anin here, So I mean the rich, okay, I'm included, I suppose. So my grandchildren, Mas Anin's grandchildren, Bernardo Vega's grandchildren. You have any grandkids? Yeah. Our grandkids are available. It's for the best and the brightest. For high IQ kids, it's to provide government support, government special schools for the gifted, especially for science, again, STEM oriented. So this is what's called the Sekolah Garuda, the Garuda schools. Okay, it doesn't matter what your income bracket is. That's another program, less well known, but being carried out by Stella Christie, who is the Vice Minister of Higher Education. So we're very proud. We're really proud of what we've done, and we will continue. And at steady state, the target is 82 million free meals a day. 82 million free meals a day. So there are three basic, let's say, positive outcomes. First of course, is the health of the kids. That's number one. Number two is the educational performance of the kids. Yeah, and the third is the multiplier effect on the economy. So basically, the three positive outcomes from one program, and we will continue. So 82 million, 78 million children, and I think unique in the world, 4 million expectant mothers. Expectant mothers who want to have free meals, because not every mother needs a free meal, right? Many mothers are well off, middle class and above. But for those who need and want a free meal to provide nutrition and sustenance to the baby in the womb, the government is going to provide free every day. So
that's a very long and impressive list. I think those are all laudable programs. You've gotten a lot of positive press, but as you know, there are always critics out there. And one common criticism, which I'm sure you've heard, is the impact that all these programs will have on your budget, and that you're very close to breaching your budget deficit cap of 3%.
No, I absolutely disagree. It's eminently affordable. Eminently affordable. I think I give you some statistics to show you. One statistic that not too many people follow, because it's rather esoteric, is the revenue ratio to GDP. I'm sure, since most of you are businessmen, business people, or academics, there is a statistic called revenue ratio to GDP. Indonesia's revenue to GDP has been extremely low for a very long time. It is, in fact, by IMF and World Bank statistics, one of the lowest in the world. It's 12% of GDP. This includes taxes. It includes royalties from coal, from gold, from copper, and all the other materials, minerals, from palm oil. It also includes import duties. It includes also excise taxes on cigarettes and alcoholic beverages and the like. Our total revenue ratio to GDP is only 12% and has been 12% for the last 15 years. Hasn't moved, hasn't improved, 12%. By contrast, many countries in Africa and in Asia have higher revenue ratios to GDP, higher. One example is our neighbor, the neighbor of Singapore, neighbor of Malaysia, it's called Cambodia. Cambodia's revenue ratio 10 years ago was 9% of GDP. Indonesia's was 12% at the same time. Fast forward 10 years, 2025, well now 2026, Cambodia's revenue ratio is 18%. Vietnam's is 23%. Indonesia is still a lowly 12%. So we've been 12% and satisfied with 12% for years and years and years and years. What does 12% and 80% mean? The delta between 18 and 12, in Indonesia's case, is $90 billion a year. If we were to be like Cambodia, and by the way, Cambodia is still considered a country much poorer, much poorer than Indonesia. We are much higher in the standard of living. But their bureaucracy, their Ministry of Finance, has been able to increase their revenue ratio from 9 to 18%. The difference is our GDP last year was $1.5 trillion. $1.5 trillion. That's the notional GDP. So based on the notional GDP of $1.5 trillion, 6% is $90 billion. Okay? $90 billion every year. We should be getting $90 billion a year extra revenue every year. And we are not. Now the question is, right, I think you're going to say, why? Well, because of the bureaucracy. Because the tax department and the customs department are not efficient, perhaps less than honest, and a lot of other things. So I can tell you that the government is going to start very soon programs to increase the revenue. And the aim is over 3 or 4 years we'll be able to reach Cambodia, and we should have a budget surplus. We have a budget deficit of, I think, $25 billion. We should have today, a surplus of $60 billion a year. That's what we should have if our Minister of Finance was properly managed. And it is being properly. We have a new Minister of Finance, we have a new Minister of Director General of Tax, and we have a new Director General of Customs. They're new because of the problems that I alluded to earlier. So this free meal program at steady state is going to cost us $25 to $30 billion. We can cover that with an extra 2% revenue increase, by 2%. Now, another statistic. The World Bank told us that our GDP is not $1.5 trillion. It's actually over $2 trillion. It's actually $2.1 trillion. This balance of $500 to $600 billion is what used to be called the black market. Now, because we are now a bit woke, we're a bit woke now. We don't call it black market anymore. It's the silver market, the gray market, anything but black for political reasons, right? So, what does it mean? It means our actual GDP today is $2.1 trillion. It's not being recorded. And one of the reasons is because people like me, when I have I employ a barber, he comes once a month, he comes to my house. And I pay him his barber fee. He doesn't levy 11% VAT on me, you know. I don't. In fact, he doesn't even give me an invoice. So I give him cash. He accepts it very gladly. He gives a big smile. I give him a big tip. He's happy. And I do this. I'm sure Mas Anin, you do that. Yes. And Bernard De Vega does this. And Alfredo, every Indonesian here who has bespoke barber services at home. We don't, right? 11% doesn't go. So we don't know. It's cash, but it's cash into the economy. These people are actually benefiting. So, okay. But Indonesia, ladies and gentlemen, we're not a G16 country, you know. We're actually G11. Indonesia is G11, right? And when you take into purchasing power parity, PPP, we're actually number 5. It's all IMF, World Bank statistics. We're actually number 5, number 6. We're not a frontier market, ladies and gentlemen. We are not a frontier market, whatever these ratings agencies tell you.
Right. The reference to frontier market came from MSCI, but that's going to be happening in May, if it happens at all. But, so the tax department might be calling you about your haircuts, but in the meantime, tied to this idea that we have enough money, we have revenue streams that are still untapped, what about President Prabowo's promise of reaching GDP of 8%? Is that eminently doable? Are there challenges?
Eminently doable. I mean, look, Vietnam, I checked the numbers, it's 8.1%. Vietnam has achieved 8.1% last year. Indonesia is 5.3%. But we haven't experienced the full effects of the housing program. The government is going to embark very soon. It's taken a bit of time because of the bureaucracy. It should have started 6 months ago, but because of the bureaucracy, it's always excuses. You can't do this because of this regulation. You can't do that because of this regulation. You can't do this, you can't do that, you cannot do this, you can't do that. That's what the bureaucrats tell us. Instead of finding solutions, right? If you do this part, you can do this. I mean, but anyway. So the housing program is going to start very soon. We're going to do 1 million apartment units. That's the aim at steady state. 1 million apartment units a year. And then we want to do 2 million homes or houses in the rural areas. Most of this will be renovations. They will be renovating existing homes. So instead of a hut, what we call in Indonesia gubuk or gedek, instead of these huts, we want to provide brick homes with running water, with electricity, perhaps with internet, low-cost internet, and then with, instead of earthen floors from tanah, we want to have proper, for hygiene, because if you have earthen floors, the tanah, you have worms, you have parasites, you have viruses, and you have bacteria. So that's a major contributor to stunting, by the way. It's not only malnutrition, it's actually the environment. That's what I've learned in the last 15 years. It's also the environment. You have to provide kids with a sanitary environment, yeah? Clean water, clean air, a clean environment, electricity, all the basic needs that a civilized society takes for granted, right? So 8%, yes. So housing, if you look at China, the People's Republic of China, and I'm a student of economic history. If you look at China, China in their housing program was 25% of their GDP for 35 years. Between the early 80s when Deng Xiaoping started his program in 81, 80, 82, until 2017, China, you can look at the statistics. It's all in the statistics. Double digit, actually 10% plus growth for 35 years. And then the developers got greedy, and I think they bribed the bankers in China. And these are the Chinese telling me this, by the way, yeah? Nothing new. So they've overbuilt, and now they're having problems. Their property market, the housing market is saturated. They're having major problems restructuring their property companies. So what we want to do is basically follow China, follow Singapore, the HDB we want to provide. And this is going to be a major boost to our economy. Why? Because I've been told that the housing industry, the housing sector, has 185 linkages to the rest of the economy. Why? Because when you build 1 million apartments, you need maybe 5 million beds. And you need at least 1 million or 2 million tables. And then you have maybe 1 million television sets, and 1 million washing machines, and 1 million refrigerators. And you get the point, right? 185 linkages will be positive. So there'll be money into and jump-starting into all these linkages. So very, very, very promising. It's going to start very soon. And that's just one example. And then we have what is called hilirisasi, downstreaming. It's basically adding value to the downstream sectors of the economy. We want to downstream or add value to many of the commodities, mineral as well as agricultural commodities, which we believe will also add to growth. So we think housing will be 1.5%, maybe 2% to GDP. That was the Chinese experience. Yeah. There's downstreaming, we believe 0.5% to 1%. Yeah. And then we are going to be embarking on a massive, this is mostly a private sector, but basically encouraged by the government, is low-cost internet connectivity. Because according to McKinsey and the World Bank, every 10% of the population, of the demographics, which is connected to the internet and low-cost internet, that adds 0.7% to 1.3% to economic growth every year. So that's another, a stimulus to the economy. So with all these, and then I haven't even mentioned free meals. 82 million meals a day, and can you imagine if 82 million eggs are required every day, and then 82 million pieces of chicken, whether it's wings, chicken wings, or chicken, the drumsticks, whatever it is. You need, 82 million chickens to be, chop every day. That's a lot of chickens. That's a lot of vegetables. That's a lot of eggs. That's a lot of every foodstuff, which again is a stimulus to the economy. So it is a stimulus to the rural economy, and the money will be staying in that sphere. It'll be circulating in the sphere, mostly out of Jakarta. Because, there's a statistic which worries me, it's bothered me. 60% to 70% of the Indonesian money supply is in the city of Jakarta. Did you know that? I don't think so, right? We need to have it outside Jakarta, so it can circulate outside Jakarta, so not only people like me and Mas Anin and Bernard, that we benefit, is people, sorry, Mas Anin, yeah? I like you, actually. So, I think you get my point, right? Okay, so 8% is doable, and frankly, I think we're going to reach 10%, I think we're really going to... We haven't even started most of our programs. We really haven't. And then, energy, power projects. I think I've mentioned several times, I think you were there, Zuraidah. when I mentioned the Indonesian government is going to embark on a very ambitious power generation program, we're talking about 70 gigawatts, 69.5 gigawatts. 76% of that is going to be from renewable energy. These are infrastructure projects will also have an impact on economic growth. So when you have all this mix of projects taken as one whole together, 8%, 9%, and I think even 10% a year. And not for 1 or 2 years, I think for the next 8 to 10 years. I'm convinced.
So, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first. 10% GDP growth from Indonesia by 2028?
28, 29. Yeah, it'll take 2 years to get, look, the housing project, which can you imagine, I was chairman of the housing task force. It took us 1 year to get all the institutional, let's say restructuring and reforms. 1 year, get this, and that and this and all the rules. And then revenue enhancement's taken again because there was resistance in the bureaucracy. The one project which we did quite fast was the carbon markets. We've been able to reform the carbon markets. Carbon markets will bring, again, it's actually going to be a stimulus, billions of dollars, tens of billions of dollars are waiting to come in, especially to fund nature-based solutions, forests. That took a year. That actually took a year to get done, to actually get the proper regulations in place. So the President Prabowo signed the relevant regulations in November of last year. It took 1 year. But that's fast, That 1 year is fast for Indonesia, So
I just want to share with the audience that when Bapak Hashim says something, you better listen because in 2023, he attended our conference in Hong Kong and he said, Inshallah, Prabowo will be president in March 2024. And he was right. At that time, it was not so clear-cut, but you made that prediction. So we should believe you when you say 10% is doable.
Yeah, I made a mistake. I thought he was going to win, but I thought he was going to win by a smaller margin. I thought he was going to win by maybe, because there were there were 3 contenders, right? So I thought he would win, let's say, 52%, 51, 52, and the others would get combined 48. But he got 58.85%. So not bad, I think, yeah?
Being humble, but. Okay, I just want to quickly turn to the subject of geopolitics. I think President Prabowo, unlike his predecessors, has been very active on the diplomatic front. You've seen him travel to China at least 2 or 3 times. He was there for the 80th anniversary of the end of the war. Even though there was talk he wasn't going to show up, but he did overnight, right? And then in January, he was alongside President Trump to announce the formation of the Board of Peace. How has Indonesia been able to navigate this fine line of being friends with both sides and not incurring the wrath of either?
You know that Prabowo has been extremely lucky because he inherited principles from our forefathers. So in 1950, when we finally got sovereignty, after 4 years of a bloody, what we call revolution against our colonial masters, from day one of the Republic of Indonesia, that was 75 years ago, our forefathers, President Sukarno and Vice President Hatta, and the leaders at the time, proclaimed, basically enunciated what they call a policy of non-alignment. Non-alignment in our jargon means, let's say in Western parlance, neutrality. It's strict neutrality, right? We are strict, and we have been neutral for 75 years, continuously. 8 presidents, 75 years, same principle. Prabowo is very lucky because our forefathers had the foresight to stick to this line, and all the presidents before Prabowo have stuck to the line. So, when he meets, the leaders of the world, he says, look, we want to be friends with everybody. We don't want to have enemies. He keeps on saying what I think is a Chinese saying. 1,000 friends too few, and one enemy is too many. That's apparently from Chinese philosophy. Prabowo was told. And that's what we want to stick to that. 1,000 friends too few, one enemy too many. So we are, by definition, neutral, non-aligned. When he meets President Xi Jinping, President Xi Jinping, he honors that, he knows that, because it's been continuous Indonesian government policy for 75 years, since the days of Chairman Mao. And when he meets President Trump, the Americans also seem to be. So that he's lucky, and so he has a lot of, the room for maneuver. So we're lucky. So it's a matter of luck, and he's hewing to the line. And I think businessmen like ourselves, we benefit because people come from all, Russian delegations come. I had a Russian delegation in my office a few days ago. I had an American delegation yesterday, right? All want to invest in Indonesia. So it's very good. I mean, we're really beneficiaries of this policy.
You're in the inner circle. You are party to all these discussions. So can you tell us which side is easier to deal with, the Americans or the Chinese?
We are neutral and non-aligned.
Okay.
I've become a little diplomatic here.
Okay, I just wonder whether we can talk a bit about the president's popularity ratings. If you look at his ratings are very high. He started out at 85. At one point was 80, yeah. And then now it's leveled off to about 75. 70. Okay, I stand corrected.
I keep a close tabs on the polls.
So how do you explain this gap between what the masses seem to indicate through their ratings and what the perception that exists in various social media channels or even in Western media or even in regional media? How do you explain that gap?
We've analyzed this and we've seen that actually a lot of messages that you and I see on social media are basically artificial messages, They're caused by, have you the term bot? Bots, robots? These are a few determined people with what's so-called avatars and bots trying to influence the narrative, basically, right? So I think that explains a lot, right? People see, social media, but social media, that 50% of the Indonesian population, the rural population, are not active in the social media. So one of the reasons why, and Prabowo's polls have been consistently, it's not only one or two polling organizations, it's many. It's multiple. The lowest I've seen is 78. The highest I've seen is 82. Last week, I think it was 79.9. It's consistently with that band, right? All polls that I've seen and I think you've seen. And one of the reasons is because a lot of his policies are really benefiting the common people. I'll just give one example which I haven't mentioned. Prabowo has become one of his major objectives was to make Indonesia self-sufficient in food, especially in rice. Indonesia, because we've been for a long time, a major importer of rice, we used to set the international price of rice. The government has actually achieved rice self-sufficiency 4 years ahead of schedule. 4 years of schedule. Today, we are self-sufficient in rice. We're not importing rice anymore. In fact, almost all year last year we didn't import. This year we're not going to import because all our warehouses, our go-downs are chock-a-block full of rice. And why is this so? Because Prabowo has given a living wage, a price for a living wage to the rice farmers of Indonesia, which basically account for 100 million people. 120 million people depend on rice farming and other agriculture for their livelihood. Prabowo and the government in February increased the purchase price of rice by 55%, from 4,000 rupiahs per kilo to 5,500 rupiahs per kilo. You can check this all over Indonesia. Prabowo is universally supported and approved by the rural population who are not on social media. They don't have to, but they don't have the time to be on social media. They work all day, back-breaking work. After they stop work, they're tired, they go to bed. They don't have time to look and make comments on social media, And their real incomes, their disposable incomes have been increased by 55%, 4,000 to 5,500. At the same time, well, actually a little bit later, but September, the government reduced the price of fertilizer, especially urea fertilizer, by 20%. So they, on the selling side, selling rice, they got 50% more income, and they had a reduction in one of their most important, let's say, cost factors, which is fertilizer. They got it reduced by 20%. So they actually got a positive double whammy. So you can check from Aceh all the way to Papua, Indonesian farmers are really, I think, the most well-off in the history of the Republic. This explains Prabowo's high popularity. He is supported especially by the rural population who are not so poor anymore. They're actually, and you have a lot of anecdotes. One anecdote I like and I like to mention to you. Online, what is it? E-commerce. Lazada, Shopee, Tokopedia, and the like, right? Amazon. Do we have Amazon in Indonesia? No, yeah. Yeah, but for imported goods, right? So, it used to be that city folk, urban folk, would be the subscribers, right? The users of online e-commerce. Now it's the rural population, which is, people have told me that there's this phenomenon of people in the second and third tier towns, like Metro, which is in North Lampung, and small towns all over Indonesia. They are now ordering consumer goods from online e-commerce. They can now afford to buy electronic goods. They can afford to buy name shampoos, brands. They can buy shoes online. They have money. They have money, and that's I think the number one why he's so popular. This free check. I told you about free checkups, right? 72 million people have benefited from free checkups. That we notice 99% approval on the free checkups, and the poor people who've had their first checkup in their lives, they're saying, Pak Prabowo, please continue with this program because it's helping my wife, it's helping my kids. My kids are getting decent health care. My wife, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. It's the 20% who don't like Prabowo who dominate social media and the airwaves. And I think that's the, yeah.
Great answer. Okay, Papa, you come from a political family. Your beloved father was an important minister in 2 cabinets, and now you have the president. And you also have the next generation involved in politics. And naturally, as part of that narrative, you hear, accusations of, is this the start of a nepotistic behavior? What do you say to such critics?
I smile, but I look at other countries. I look at Singapore. I look at Malaysia. I look at Thailand. I look at Japan. I look at India. But then you go to Europe, and I look at Greece, and I look at the United States. So how do I react? I smile. What's new? My family's been in politics before I was born, right? My father, Prabowo's father, was Minister of Finance in 1953. He was Economics Minister in 1950. So he was minister twice before I was born, right? So we have the tradition, right? And my children and my nephews are following the tradition, very much like many other Asian countries. So we're not so far off from other Asian countries. I forgot to mention the Philippines. So I know. So, well, it's part of the culture, I would think.
Hey, Papa, one personal question. There's a 3-year age gap between you and Papa President. Obviously, both of you are very close. So this is a question that was asked of me by an Indonesian to ask you. So I'm hiding behind an Indonesian. How close are you and how alike are you and how different are you from each other? And what happens when you disagree? Who gets the last word? And what's the most misunderstood thing about the president? So many questions.
Because I've been, I'm 71 years old, going on 72, and as far as I know, he's scolded me, and we've had fights since I can remember. So we've had fights since I was 70. No, since I was 1 or 2 years old, right? So I have this advantage that when he gets angry, I'm used to it, right? So for me, it's like Teflon, right? He's been angry with me for 69 years of my life, right? So that's the advantage I have, right? He's misunderstood. People don't see the humor. I mean, my brother, he likes to crack jokes. He's a jokester. He likes to crack jokes all the time. You don't see that. Most people don't see that. Very few people see that. But he likes to crack jokes. He has a lot of humor. And, many people don't realize that when he gets angry, it lasts for 2 minutes. And then he invites you for a sumptuous dinner. And the person he gets angry with, okay, let's get together, let's have some dinner. So he's very, very generous. He's a very generous person. I mean, I think the misunderstanding that people think that he has this austere, apa sih bahasa Indonesia, serem ya? Apa ya, serem? Scary? Is it? Bahasa Indonesia is scary. Yeah, he's this persona, because he was a soldier, And people said, why do you have this persona? And he said, he's so used to, and when you're in the army and you're with the special forces, and he compares the special forces to wolves, Serigala. So if you're the commander of the Serigala, you're the head of the pack, you're head of the wolf pack, you have to be the toughest and the fiercest wolf in the wolf pack, because if you're not fierce and tough, you get eaten by the other wolves, right? So he regards himself, when he was in the army, as the head of the pack. He was the head of the wolf pack, and all his soldiers were wolves. In order to control all these wolves, you've got to be the top wolf. And that's I think, that carried forward, and maybe. So he's very misunderstood. Wolves don't joke, Wolves they're not humorous. Most wolves that I've read about are not humorous. So that's the difference, I think, yeah? So, yeah. Did I answer your question?
Perfectly. Okay, one last question. Second term, happening?
Yeah, it all depends on his health. Because if he's healthy enough, I think he'll run again. It all depends on his health. But I think the expectation, subject to good health, the expectation that he will run again.
Great. So we've kept you here for an hour. I am sure I speak on behalf of the audience when I say thank you very much for being candid, sharing your insights, sharing your wisdom. Any questions from the floor? Anybody wants to ask any questions? I've asked all the questions on your behalf. I think they're too shy, but. Okay, please join me in thanking Pa Hashim for giving us so generously of his time and his insights. But I now would like to invite the publisher of SCMP, Ms. Tammy Tan, to come on stage to share a few words for Pa Hashim. Pa Hashim, you can stay seated.
Zuraidah. Actually, I wanted to raise my hand, but on second thought, I think I better come here and ask the questions. So, first of all, Pa Hashim, thank you so much. It was really our true honor to have you to have this powerful yet very honest sharing with us. You talk about the free meal and the many policy initiatives by President Prabowo. I truly believe it is very, very important for nurturing our next generations in Indonesia. Indonesia is a very young country, but the next generation is also very important. So education is really important. That's also very true to Chinese as well. So we all have our childhood once upon a time. We do have some of the schools that we like and some schools that we don't like. So my question is actually just a little secret and also a little bit of surprise for you, but I want to ask you first. What are some of your favorite primary schools in your life? And where they are?
I think I know where you're going. I actually went to school in Hong Kong.
Oh,
And,
you revealed the
so
secret
did
already.
my brother. So my brother and I went to Glenealy Junior School in the mid-levels. Maybe some of you know. And my sister went to KG5, King George V School in Kowloon. So we have some, I remember the uniform was gray. It was a gray winter uniform, I remember, because it was the first time winter. So yeah, Glenealy Junior School, and I went to a kindergarten called Royden House. Does anybody remember Royden House? Yeah, you do? Yes, you do. You must be 70 years old. Really? So Royden House, I went to Royden House for 1 year, and then I went to Glenealy for 1 year. So my brother went. Prabowo was he's an alumnus of Glenealy Junior School. Yeah.
Yeah. So I hope your brothers, big brothers, and
And
younger
our
brothers
landlord was Stanley Ho.
Ah.
He had not. He wasn't. He hadn't started the casino business in Macau at the time. Not yet. 1960. Yeah, those are fond memories.
Great. So your two brothers, you did not fight, during the time.
Oh, no, we
Okay. So actually, after learning that you were in Hong Kong, you went to a Hong Kong primary school, our team reached out to the school, and they presented us an image of the original mission book. In that book, there is the name of a boy at the time, aged 8. And the guardian of the boy was your beloved late father. And the school presented this image to us, and we are going to present this to you. And the boy's name is Prabowo. And as for you, we are waiting for you to go to Hong Kong and to collect that in person. We met Pa Hashim 2 years ago in Hong Kong, Zuraidah just mentioned, and you also met our chairman, Zhou Chai, who is also the co-founder and chairman of Alibaba. He knows that we are here, and he asked us to send you his warmest regards. Yeah, and on behalf of Zhou, we also want to present this invitation letter for you to come to Hong Kong later this year to be a speaker and to join our Family Business Summit. Okay, so thank you. With this special family connections between President and your family with Hong Kong, we do believe Hong Kong and Indonesia, we are going to have a more solid foundation to a more prosperous and more robust future of the two places. Thank you very much. And now we are going to show the video of the registration book showing the president's name.
Selendang sutra, tanda mata darimu, telah ku terima sebulan yang lalu. Selendang sutra di saat itu turut beserta dalam hatiku. Ketika lenganku berluka parah, selendang sutramu turut berjasa. Selendang sutra.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
As you can see, Ms. Tam and Ms. Ibrahim are now presenting His Excellency Pak Hashim with the souvenir. And let's see what that souvenir is. I will describe it to everybody. Just now, you saw the book of the student registry. Well, there is a remake of that registry of the student enrollment right here framed. Could I invite our three esteemed guests for one more photo? His Excellency, may I invite you for one more photo, please? Looking to the center. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Your Excellency, Pak Hashim, also Ms. Tam and Ms. Ibrahim. Thank you. Please be seated. Thank you very much.